Coach Nick Saban. Coach, good to see you, sir. Welcome back.
Oh, good to be here, certainly.
We missed you last week.
Yeah, well, I missed everybody here, too. So, I felt great last week. I got a cold this week, but I'm good.
That's all right. There's no prohibitions about being on the sidelines with a cold, so that's good. I'll tell you, we were just talking with Jamie about the college game versus the pro game and how she gets to talk with young kids and tell stories and so much. You've experienced both. They're both football, but boy, they're different, aren't they?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest things that I love about college football is you have such a good opportunity to sort of impact, direct, get guys to make better choices and decisions that'll actually impact the quality of their life down the road.
Right.
And I love coaching pro football. But it's really about football. And I've always sort of said, in college you have a spirit of development. You have a spirit around because people love their school and they love their team, and gives the players something special to play for from an internal spirited standpoint. And the NFL is really a business, and that's what everybody that's playing is in business for themselves, and it's just a little different kind of motivation.
And of course, you understand that, Jamie, because you yourself were an athlete collegiately, so you can really identify.
Yeah, I can. I certainly never got to the level that, the guys that go through Alabama's program got to, but at least there's a little bit of a connection there. But, Coach, it's good to see you. I'm glad we get to talk about football this week and not, all that other stuff we had to chat about last week.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's nice. Sure is.
So along those lines, I got to catch up with John Mechie yesterday. What an engaging young man. I absolutely loved hearing about his background and his story. One of the things he told me, which I thought was interesting, and I wanted to pick your brain about, was just how late in life he truly started playing the game of football. And I was curious for you in terms of coaching, is that sometimes an opportunity when you get a guy that has such raw athleticism that maybe doesn't have the true football skill set that had been developed? You get your hands on him and you can really mold him into the player that he needs to be. Can you tell when a player has started playing football so late?
I don't know if you can tell when they've played so late, but you actually can tell based on the program that they've been, how many years that they've played, and then you equate sort of their athletic skill level for how fast they are, the quickness that they have, the hands that they have in his particular case. And you know that they have a tremendous amount of upside because they haven't played that long. They don't have the same experience that, say, somebody who went to IMG or some Duncanville in Texas that is a great program where these guys really get developed. They lift weights from the time they're in the 7th grade. And, those guys all can get better too. But you also see some guys that, based on their raw ability and where they are in their development, that they do have a tremendous amount of upside, especially if they got the right kind of competitive character. And, Jonathan Mechie has really good competitive character. He's a hard worker, he's a good person, makes good choices and decisions about what he does on and off the field, and he has improved tremendously, in the year and a half that he's been here.
Now, here's a guy who was born in Taiwan, moved to Ghana, then to Canada, eventually to New Jersey. When did he get on your map? When did you first catch him and say, hey, this is a guy to look at?
Well, it was in his, I guess what would have been his senior year.
Okay.
And he was actually living in Maryland, I think,
right.
At the time, knowing he was from Canada, and his mom was actually in Canada. So we really loved his ability from, day one. Josh Gaddis, who was a coach here at the time, and he was at Penn State, had some previous relationship. I guess he was in Penn State's camp, so there was a connection there that got us interested. But then when we evaluated him, we said, wow, this guy's he's the real deal.
The explosiveness of the offense this year has just been something to him. It's been, on our side, watching the world through crimson-colored glasses, it's been wonderful to watch.
Well, the offense has done a great job. The offensive line has progressively played better and better each week. They've been good all year, but Really, we're challenged because Georgia has a really, really good front seven. Really, we're challenged in the game and did a really, really good job, not just in how we run the ball, but also in pass protection. Even though Mac got hit a couple times last week on some errors that we made in pass protection. So we got really good skill guys. Mac has played very well. Mac has stayed in the right place, looked at the right things, kind of takes what the defense gives. We got good runners. So I think the balance that we have on offense has really made us very, very effective, and it's also opened up the opportunities to make a lot of explosive plays.
Sure has. No sooner did you say offensive line than the phone started lighting up. You know who's on the line? Pee Wee from down in Grand Bay always loves talking about the offensive line. He is the first question on the phone, brought to you by Alabama 811. Always contact 811 before you dig to know what's below. Call 811 or visit al811.com. Pee Wee, you're on with the coach and with Jamie Erdahl from CBS.
Coach, how you doing, buddy?
Good, Pee Wee. How are you? I think Jamie deserves, more of a sort of a, audition as to who Pee Wee really is.
Yeah,
That's
true. He has been the offensive line coach for Alabama for the last 14 years. All right, so we get a lot of coaching points on Thursday night because he's always the first caller, and he always critiques the offensive line. So then on Friday, I go back and have a meeting with the offensive line and pass on all this information. So it's really helped our development.
Said you tell Alex Leatherwood, here's what Pee Wee said.
That's an honor.
It is.
Well, just so you know. Go ahead, Pee Wee.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for the background.
Well, Coach, I did want to give props to the offensive line, but I want to give props to the whole team. It's not that we didn't play badly in the first half. We certainly could have played better. But when we came out in the second half, and Coach Smart actually talked about this, it seems like they just dominated on the line and in his words, out-physicaled us. And everything that they did, it was like the defense played on a different level in the second half. The offensive guys were getting off, moving guys, getting some movement, good pass protection, as you mentioned. But, the one thing that I really liked about this whole entire game and victory was the celebration in the locker room. I thought that was amazing, Coach.
Yeah, you got some moves there, Coach.
Yeah, well, it makes me so happy to see the players happy and be excited about, going out and playing well against a really, really good team. And I think some of the things that you mentioned were very, very important factors in the game. Our players, I was proud of the way they competed in the game one play at a time for every play in the game and just kept fighting and fighting their way through a lot of adversity, giving up an 83-yard touchdown. I mean, it just play the next play, keep playing, and, see if you can win the game in the fourth quarter, which we took advantage of the turnovers that we got defensively. I think we scored every time we had the chance to do that. So when we got a turnover, so I was just really proud of the way, the toughness that we played with, how physical we were, the relentless sort of attitude that we played with in the game. And I think that was the difference because Georgia's a really, really good team. They have a lot of really good players. They're really well coached. They played hard in the game too. So, but that's what made a great game. And our guys did come out in the second half, but I think we sort of prepared them that this was going to be a 15-round fight, and nobody was probably going to win the fight until the 15th round. Every game that we've had with Georgia has gotten decided in the last minute of the game, and the last three games that we played them were in overtime. All right, so we sort of tried to prepare our guys for that, and I think that's why they knew that they had to come out and play well in the second half.
Along the lines of the celebration, catching up with your players, in the first couple weeks of the season, to me, they seem like a really loose group. Not that previous teams have been uptight, but they seem like they're really enjoying the season. Would you attribute that to there was a chance that they weren't going to have football this fall, and you feel like they are really just reveling in the opportunity that they have, and we all know, and now you know firsthand that feeling of what you could have missed out on. Are you sensing that about your team?
Well, I think that's part of it. I really do, because these guys really wanted to play the season, and as you said, there was a long time where they didn't know for sure if we were going to have a season. They didn't know where we were going to practice. They didn't know when we were going to play a game. But I also think that I've tried to get our players in the beginning here of the program. You know, our whole sort of attitude was, we just want you to compete and focus on what you have to do every play in the game to be the best player that you can be. And I think that through the years, because of the success that we've had, that the anxiety built because everybody started focusing more on, we've got to win the game. Everybody thinks we're supposed to win the game. And I think when you start focusing on outcomes like that, you know, it creates anxiety. I mean, you were an athlete, you know, if you think we got to win, we got to win, we got to win, rather than what do I have to do on this play to help us win, you know, it creates a lot of anxiety. So we really tried to build on what you talked about in terms of, hey, it's a great opportunity for everybody to create value this year. Let's go sort of have fun. Let's play every play. Let's, you know, be relentless in how we compete. And don't worry so much about the scoreboard, but let's try to be the best players that we can be. And let's see if we have the DNA to do that on a consistent basis, you know, throughout the season. You know, one game is not going to make the season. One win is not going to make the season. It's, you know, can you sustain that, not get satisfied, not get complacent with where you are. And, you know, our players have actually done that in the last 2 games. You know, Ole Miss, the offense never blinked. I mean, they had to keep scoring because we weren't stopping them. And they did the same thing in the Georgia game against a really, really good team. So now can we sustain that? Are we going to be able to sustain that week in and week out? And that's the challenge.
By the way, Jamie, before we break away, we mentioned, and the coach said that you were an athlete. You played basketball and softball collegiately. Did either of those sports intrigue you more than the other, and if so, why?
I was better at softball than I was at basketball, but I love basketball more. My dad, you know, was my guy growing up basketball. I love John Stockton. I was a true passing point guard. You couldn't tear me away from watching any sort of basketball growing up, but my skill set was in a different sport, but I really kind of, I think, excelled more at basketball because I cared more about it.
Interesting. That's Jamie Erdahl from CBS Sports.
I like basketball the best, too. But I think...
Well, that's why we get along.
I mean, and I'm, you know...
I heard you had a pickup game that I feel like I need to inquire about.
Well, you know, I won the horse game that I had a few years ago, so... You know, and
well, put me on the list. Once we can be within 6 feet of each other, we'll play horse.
We have, you know, the NBA in the off-season, Noontime Basketball Association, so, you know...
Yep.
But we have to scout you out because the best players play on my team. All right, so I have to see if you.
Oh my God! Talk about anxiety building.
He's the president, the commissioner. He's the rule maker. He's everything.
In case the kick is short or off the mark, he could run it back. The snap, the spot, the kick on the way. Good from 52 yards. Will Reichard, a new career long in college.
That was a dandy for the sophomore from Hoover, Alabama. He had a 49-yard field goal against New Mexico State a season ago, but Coach Saban, that was wonderful to see, and it's so nice to see him done with that darn hip flexor injury and kicking as well as he is.
Well, he kicked really well for us last year, kicked off as well as, you know, did the field goals, and when he got injured, you know, we thought he'd be out for a week or two, and as soon as he came back, he re-injured himself, so he was out for the season, and, you know, it had some, you know, really adverse effects on us, and to see him come back this year even better than he was before is really, really a good thing. But, you know, that we had to learn a lesson there because, you know, we were screaming on the sidelines, right, when they called timeout and put a returner in.
Right.
And, you know, our quarterback or the holder is supposed to always look for that on long field goals. And we couldn't get anybody's attention. the holder didn't look down to see that there were a returner in,
Right.
and we didn't cover the kick at all. So we practiced that, but it's the recognition of it that is most important. And but it was a good lesson for us to learn, to be able to see that on film and see what the consequences would have been if he didn't make the field goal.
Indeed. Jamie, why don't you jump in with another question for the coach?
Well, Coach, being from Minnesota, people are finally starting to talk about college football up that way because the Big Ten is coming back this week. And I was curious about how you usually go about your business in terms of keeping an eye on the rest of the football landscape throughout the season. If you've noticed the absence of the Big Ten, if you're looking forward to having that back as part of the conversation, and just what that looks like now with that part of football coming back.
Well, I think my big thing is, from a player's perspective, I'm just happy that the players are going to have an opportunity to be able to compete. I wish every league would come back and give their players the opportunity to compete. And it just happens to be the timing of the Big Ten coming back right now. But, you know, in the season, I don't see many games other than our games and the people that we play. You know, sometimes if we have a day game at home and you get home and you see a little bit of game on Saturday night, never see any NFL games on, you know, Sunday or Monday night. So other than the football that we watch Monday for 14 hours a day and Tuesday for 14 hours a day and usually for about 12 hours a day on all the rest of the days, we don't get to see much. And I can't say that I miss it.
I hear you. Hey, Jamie, since you're from Minnesota, let's head that way. We've got a caller on the line from Bloomington, Minnesota, right outside of Minneapolis. Tara is joining us on the Nick Saban Show. Hi, Tara. How are you?
I am great. How are you?
Very well. You're on with Coach Saban and Jamie Erdahl, a Minneapolis or Minnesota native from CBS
How are you
Sports.
feeling, Nick Saban?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really good. Thank you. I appreciate you asking.
How are you going to do against Tennessee in Knoxville this Saturday afternoon?
Well, I hope we'll do well, but I'm always hopeful because, you know, you always, as a coach, want to see the players really well prepared, do a good job in practice so that they can take it to the game. But I will say this, that I think Tennessee is a much better team than what they played last week against Kentucky. I think they're a very capable team, and if they didn't turn the ball over last week, you know, it would have been a different kind of game. So we have a tremendous amount of respect for them, their team, their coaches, and how they'll play in the game, and we know pretty much what our guys are going to have to do. So it's just a matter of whether we're going to be up for the challenge or not, because it's going to take a lot for us to go up there and be able to win on the road in the SEC, which is always the case in the SEC. But this is a rivalry game, so very important for us to understand that and really understand what we're really getting into when we go up there and play these guys.
There was an article on AL.com early this week by Michael Casagrande writing about Alabama football games, the SEC, but in particular Alabama, the games being seen in 17 Latin American countries. They are broadcast by Oscar Cleriga on the Claro Sports Network in Latin America. And certainly I've not seen the telecast. You haven't either, but I assume. But he reached out to me and he said, would you ask Coach Saban, he said in his halting English, does he realize the reach of the University of Alabama program? He said, we get more viewers when Alabama is on that network than any other team. I dare say you realize that, don't you?
Yeah, I do, because we get, occasionally we get things from all over the world in terms of people watching our games. You know, Ola, who is the CEO of Mercedes, you know, used to work out there and run the plant. He's still a big Alabama fan, and, you know, he stays up and watches every game that he can watch. So I do realize that. That's why I think it's so important. I don't think our players realize that sometimes, but I do think that that's why it's so important that we represent, you know, the university, the program, and all the people who are interested in in the program in a first-class way, and I've been really proud of the way this team has done that for the most part so far this year.
And Jamie, of course, you guys, your telecast goes everywhere through the reach of CBS and their streaming services and so on. So I dare say you hear from folks like Oscar as well and watching wherever they might be around the world.
Yeah, they come out of all corners, especially when Alabama's on. I mean, I know there's rules and regulations as to how many times we can show a certain team in the conference, and I'm fairly certain that we max out on Alabama any chance we get.
I expect so. Dave is on the phone in Calera, Alabama. Hello, Dave. Welcome in.
How you doing, Eli?
I am well, sir. Thank you.
Good deal. How you doing, Coach?
Good, David. How are you?
Doing well. Doing well. I'd like to ask you a question about Miller Forrestall.
Okay.
Okay. So my wife and I kind of feel like he's your secret weapon. You know, and I would like to know if you all plan plays for him to either receive or carry the ball, or is it just more of an opportunity if he's available?
Well, we do have some plays that he is a primary target, largely because a lot of people do a lot of things to try to take away our other skill players. That when, you know, Waddle and Smitty and Jonathan Mechie are out there, you know, they're trying to play them. So that kind of leaves the tight end sometimes in a really good position to be able to make plays. I think Sark does a great job of utilizing the talent that we have on our team and getting the ball to all the players that can make plays at skill positions, tight end, running back. So, but Miller is, I mean, this guy is a great leader on the team. He's a great worker. I think he always puts the team first. He has to do a lot of dirty work, you know, as a tight end in terms of does a lot of blocking, pass blocking, run blocking. So he really does a good job in all those areas, but he's kind of an extension of the offensive line in some ways, but he's also a really good receiver. And, you know, he hurt his ankle the first play of the game last week and just toughed it out and played the rest of the game, so he's going to be okay this week. But what a great competitive character this guy has, and we have a tremendous amount of respect for him. And it's guys like that that really make your team what it is. You know, you always have some great players or whatever that can make big plays, but this guy is one of those guys that's just a blue-collar worker that does everything he's asked to do, and when he has an opportunity to make a play, he's made one every time we've asked him to.
Yeah, 8 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Last year, of course, 9 games, 15 catches, 4 more touchdowns for the fifth-year senior out of Cartersville, Georgia. Since we're talking tight ends, Coach, how's Carl Tucker's hamstring? Anything better today?
Well, he's still going to be, you know, questionable for a while longer, I think. These things are kind of difficult to come back from, and if you come back too soon, they just kind of linger on and on and on. So we're hopeful that in another week or two he'll be able to start doing some things again.
And LeBrian Ray's
he's still questionable as well. You know, he's got an elbow injury, and he has practiced some, but it's also been bothersome for him, so I don't know that he's quite ready yet either.
Mack gives the signal. Devontae goes in motion behind him. Mack looks right. Pressure's coming. He'll throw long. Waddle's got it behind the defense. Leaves the DB on the ground. There you go. You ask, you get. 90 yards. Tyson Campbell wondering what happened to Jalen Waddle. Has he left him behind for the touchdown?
That line about you ask, you get, Coach. John Parker Wilson and I were talking just prior to that. I said, you know, this would be a great time for a 90-yard touchdown pass. And there it came. So not that I am all-knowing or anything, and I certainly didn't have a crystal ball, but that's where that comment came from.
Well, that was a big play in the game, no doubt. I mean, the field position that we had was not very good, and to make plays like that, I think, can be real game changers. And you know, Jalen Waddle did a great job on beating the coverage. We were in a stack alignment and, you know, ran kind of an over route, and they were playing 3 over 2, but somebody ends up on one guy. Mack did a good job of figuring out who it was, and Jalen beat the guy.
And Mack is the SEC Offensive Player of the Week again. Nice honor for him.
No doubt. And, Mac has really played well for us, played smart, stayed within himself, and I'm really, really pleased with how he's played.
Our special media guest tonight, Jamie Erdahl from CBS Sports. Miss Jamie, jump right in.
Well, the Miller Forrestal conversation, prompted a thought I had about him. I was hearing about the whole Trevor Lawrence connection with him in high school and how took over for him at quarterback at a young age. And when you recruited him, Miller told me that as a tight end, you recruited him and you said, you might be a great pass-catching tight end, but you really need to work on your blocking. You're pretty bad at it. And he really appreciated your honesty in your recruiting process. And I was curious, along your time in coaching, was there a time that you recruited to get the guy to this team, and then it switched to, I'm going to recruit with honesty and with telling the player how I can really improve them, and that's going to be the best way I can get guys there?
Well, I think that our honesty in recruiting and telling guys that they have an opportunity, that we're going to give them an opportunity, and I think one of the biggest things we always fight in recruiting is, people historically tell guys, well, they got all these players there, you're not going to be able to play. If you come to our place, you'll be able to play, earlier, sooner, whatever. So that does us a lot of good in that we kind of get a lot of guys that are dogs, I'm going to call them. You say this guy's a dog. That means he's got like a competitive spirit, that he wants to be the best and he wants to play against the best and he wants to compete against the best, and kind of the Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan type guy, which those kind of guys really make your team really, really good. And they have to understand that there's a process that they have to go through. Almost every player wants to play when he's a freshman. But the thing about it is how you develop and what kind of player you become 3 years from now is the most important thing in creating value for yourself as a football player, because that's when people are going to look at you. So if you really want to play in the NFL someday, or you really want to have a great career as a college player, it's probably not going to happen just in your freshman year. It's going to happen in terms of what you develop into 3 years from now. So we're always trying to get guys to focus on their development. How are you going to get better? How can we make you better? Here's some guys that have come here that we made better in terms of how they developed, how we coached them, what the program did for them, whether it's strength and conditioning, nutrition, the whole 9 yards in terms of developing physically as a player. So that's kind of more the approach that we've always tried to use in recruiting. Not really promising playing time, but really promising the opportunity to play and to develop as a player, which I think is what creates value for the future.
Coach, we have a question, another one from the Nick Saban Show blog at AL.com. Troy in Nashville, Tennessee. Hey, Coach, it appears that we're going to be facing a decent offensive line with Tennessee on Saturday. Have you been pleased with Bama's defensive line play so far this fall? Thanks, Coach, and Roll Tide.
Well, I think that there's been times when we played very well up front, and I think there's also times when we would like to make some improvement in terms of how we play, totally as a defense, and how we play the run. I thought we fit more things better in the last game, so I think we played a little better. The couple plays that Georgia was able to make, a couple 15-yard runs that they had, we really didn't fit the play right. Somebody was out of their gap. So those are the kind of things that you really have to be consistent on when you play teams that can really run the ball. Last year when we played Tennessee, they were able to run the ball on us. They got in a lot of unbalanced formations, but they were able to run the ball. And 4 out of the 5 guys that played last year are going to play this year. So we're going to have to do a really, really good job of being able to stop the run. It's going to be really important in this game, and I think we need to continue to improve in that regard.
Coach, let's go back to the phones. Jamie as well. Chris is with us from south of the state. He's in Loxley, Alabama. Hello, Chris. Welcome to the Nick Saban Show.
Thank you, Eli. Roll Tide, Coach.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
Doing quite well now that I'm talking with you. How about yourself?
Oh, I can't complain. Doesn't do any good anyway, so we're just kind of rolling
I hear
along.
you, brother. Yeah, our wives don't listen to us. Anyway, Jamie, you might confirm this. was not last week's Georgia game the highest rated sporting event so far this year?
Sporting event or college football? That I know it was college football on any network, but I'm not sure about sporting event.
But yeah, the viewership was outstanding. It was through the roof.
Yes.
Yeah, I just saw where that. And Coach, you were just talking about the Tennessee game and the running and everything, and I noticed that Lane had a few tricks up his sleeve of that running straight up the gut and looked like and was successful at times and looked like Kirby tried the same thing. Do you believe that, number one, probably like Lane, Jeremy has been studying for this game since last year, and number two, that they will try the up the gut stuff?
Well, I don't think there's any question about it, but I do think that one thing about this day and age of football is, you know, people sort of think the defensive line stops the run, but you really stop the run with all 11 guys in this day and age of football. So, you know, sometimes DBs have run fits. Other DBs are playing RPOs, which it makes it more difficult to read run pass because it's a running play, but they're passing the ball. So I do think that, like we used to do force drill, and it used to be the perimeter players. Now when we do force drill, it's all 11 players because all 11 players have to fit these runs. And the way people play offense now with RPOs, sometimes, you know, the defensive back doesn't fit right on the running play, and they have a successful running play. That happened a couple times at Ole Miss. Sometimes the linebackers don't fit the runs exactly right. Sometimes the defensive linemen don't stay in their gaps. So everybody really has to do their job. And eye control, looking at the right thing, keying the right thing is really the key to playing good defense in this day and age. Just like a couple of those tight end pop passes that, you know, Ole Miss hit on us. We had bad eye control. You know, the guy came through the line and went down the middle. Then we didn't tackle very well in the game. So a combination of those two things were really detrimental to us being able to play the kind of defense, run or pass, that we need to play. But I do think that people do a lot of off-season study. Lane made the statement that I was with Nick for 3 years, and I had 3 pages of notes of everything that he ever said gave him problems on defense, and we tried every one of them. So, you know, when guys work for you, they kind of know a little bit about the program. So anyway, we kind of expect the same.
Yeah. Thanks for your call. Go ahead, Jamie.
Coach, along those lines, I know you shared that with us last week about Lane, which made me chuckle, absolutely. But you're in the middle of facing all your former assistants in the month of October. Who is most like you, personality-wise, out of this group of guys, and who was most opposite your personality, let's say, in terms of being in a meeting room?
Well, I think that each one of the guys have a personality of their own, and certainly have a way that they want to do things, that they probably learned some things here that maybe changed their philosophy a little bit or made them a little more organized or something. But, you know, each one of those guys had one thing in common. They were all very good leaders. Players responded to them. I think they all had a presence. And if you look at every one of those guys, whatever they were responsible for here while they were here, that group did very, very well because they had leadership. The players responded to them. The players trusted them. And I think from a personality standpoint, I really can't compare anybody to me. You know,
but Lane seems like he can really get under some skin sometimes. That seems like a personality trait of his.
But I like Lane. I mean, I like Lane. He's very bright. He's smart. He did a really good job here. And I actually made the statement once that after being a head coach, you know, Lane probably would be a much better head coach. In fact, I told the people at Florida, what was it, Atlantic, where he went, that he would be a much better coach than even he was an assistant, and he was a very good assistant. So, but, you know, I have a tremendous amount of respect for all those guys. I like all those guys. Some of those guys, you know, Miss Terry's there when her kids were born, you know, way back when.
So cool.
So, you know, it's really hard to you have a tremendous amount of respect for someone. You have to compete against them. You know they're good competitors. You want to compete against them. But the one thing that I never do is I never take it personal. You know, Bill Belichick was in our division. We're good friends. We played 2 times a year when I was in Miami. But it never affected our friendship and our relationship. And I'm sure he wanted to beat us, and we wanted to beat them as bad as anybody. But when the game's over, it's not personal. Everybody's doing their best to get their team ready to play the best, and you have to have a lot of respect for that. So I do think all these guys are doing a really good job in developing the programs that they're in, and they're very competitive, and won't be any different this week.
2 wides to the near. Now Forrestall comes to the right side of the formation. Here's the snap. Mack looks. End zone. Up goes Devontae. Touchdown! Wow! Over the head of the defensive back. 13 yards. Unbelievable catch for Devontae Smith.
I seem to say that all the time. 11 catches, 167 yards, couple of touchdowns for Devontae in last week's win over Georgia. Coach, let's talk briefly about the Tennessee Volunteers. You may have a guess as to who's going to start at quarterback for them, though I've not heard that Jeremy has said anything definitively. How different are they when Garantano's in there? Maurer, we saw him in 8 games last year. Shrout played sporadically in 4 games last year. How do they differ depending upon the quarterback?
Well, I don't think a lot. I think that I think Maurer will probably play. We have a lot of respect for Garantano. They both played against us in the past.
Yep.
I think both are very capable, good athletes, can both throw it. I think that it's important that you can push the pocket and affect these guys. They try to make a lot of explosive plays, especially when you play middle of the field coverage. Don't throw the ball down the field a lot. They're going to be protection conscious. They're very sound in what they do. They have about all the multiples on offense that anyone could have. I think they do a really, really good job in the way they try to attack you. But I think it's going to be really important that we don't give up big plays in the game, that we tackle well, that we can stop the run and create some positive down and distance situations, and then we get off the field on 3rd down. So those are going to be really critical factors, I think, in this game for us. And, you know, their defense is playing really well, too, and they play a lot more split safety coverages, so it makes it a little bit harder, I think, where you really have to be able to run the ball effectively when people try to do that. So we're going to have great balance on offense.
Indeed. So, by the way, folks, if you've missed any portion of tonight's show, you can always catch it on demand on our Alabama Insider podcast. Download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And, Coach, as we head towards the top of the hour, it is time now for your final word, presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Well, I think this is a real challenge for our team in terms of what is our DNA. You know, do we have the ability to sustain the kind of competitive spirit, physical toughness, relentless sort of way that we played, you know, in the game last week? And I think it's really important that we can continue, you know, to be able to play that way. I think that's got to be the trademark of the team. That's got to be sort of our DNA, that humility keeps you hungry. I said that after the game in the press conference. I said that after the game to the players. And I think, you know, that's very, very important to being able to stay hungry, to be the best you can be, know what it takes to go out there and prepare and do it week in and week out. One game doesn't make a season. So consistency and performance is the most important thing we need to get out of this game and this team, and see if we're capable of doing that. So it'll be interesting to see how we respond.
Well, listen, you travel safely. We'll see you up in Knoxville tomorrow, and glad you're back with us here and that all is well.
Well, I'm glad to be here, so I appreciate all the support. I really do appreciate, and I've said this several times, how many people texted, called, sent cards, wishing us good health and all this kind of stuff when, you know, we got the bad news last Wednesday. So I can't tell you how heartfelt that makes us and how much we appreciate it. And certainly, you know, the Alabama nation and a lot of friends and from all over the country were very, very supportive of the circumstance that we were in. And fortunately, we have a lot of gratitude that it worked out in a positive way for us.
Or, as the case may be, a negative way.
Well,
Either way, we'll take it.
yeah, I guess.
It was good to see you on the sidelines. Either way you want to phrase it, but
Jamie, I appreciate you doing this. And I know you're far, far away, but I guess we'll see you again soon.
Coach, you can't shake me just yet. You'll have us on the schedule a couple more times.
Well, good. We're
I
glad
bet
to have
so.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Coach,
Appreciate it.
thank you very much.